What's up and what's happening, TPE fam? We're back with another episode of the Pivot Experience podcast. And on this episode, I have a very special guest. We are bringing on Caleb Andrews. I have had the pleasure of working with Caleb for the last 8 years. And I believe that he has a story of leadership that will help you pivot into your next. I really enjoyed our conversation in this episode, and I hope you guys will have a chance to hear his heart and to learn from his struggles and his opportunities and the things that he's done well to help you pivot into your next. Let's jump into the episode. What's up and what's happening, TPE fam? We're back with another episode of the Pivot Experience podcast, where our aim and goal is to continue to help leaders pivot into their next. As you guys know, we like to bring on guests who I believe have a leadership story that is of value and they'll help someone get over the hump and get into the space in which they want to go. On today's episode, we have a very, very special guest. I've been working with this individual going on, maybe 5-6 years now? You might be eight. Whoa, I'm all the way off. Look at that shows. Sorry about that. So I've been working with this guy, close to 8 years or over 8 years now. And I really have appreciated his leadership. I've watched him just about grow up, I guess, in a sense. And I've had the pleasure of first meeting his dad first. His dad was one of my football coaches back in high school. And I know his dad went from coach. I think he was teaching math at the time. And he transitioned into becoming an administrator in our district. And now he's a principal. If you don't correct me if I'm wrong, he's a principal. Where is he at?
So he went to North Shore.
Okay.
He went back to the classroom.
Okay, cool. But yeah, now Coach Andrews has always been cool, man. And it was just a pleasure to be able to work with his son and to be able to kind of continue that relationship in a different capacity. So I've got none other than Caleb Andrews on the Pivot Experience. How are you doing today?
Thank you for all the kind words first. And I'm doing great. My name is Caleb Andrews.
Yeah, Caleb, go ahead and just tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Sounds good. So I'm 25, born in Port Arthur, Texas. Two-parent household, 4 kids, and I mean it's just been a journey. At the current moment, I have a 3-year-old, I have a beautiful wife. We have a great family, and I love shoes. I'm a huge shoe fan. I love playing video games. I actually want to be like a streamer. That ship might have sailed already, but but there's still a lot of things going on in the works. Growing up, I've always been like book smart. Always tried to stay like between the guidelines. Always try to follow what my parents taught me because I've had so many great role models in life. And I try to just like compound on that. I've always tried to be better. I've always tried to grow. And I feel like there was some point in time where I just kind of hit like a plateau. And at that point in time is kind of when I started working at Chick-fil-A. I was 18. I graduated high school when I was 15, going on 16. So I had 2 years of college as a high school age teenager, and I just had no real direction. I was just kind of like going with the flow. And once I was introduced to the brand, I kind of realized where I wanted to go in life. I realized like I have a passion for people. I've always talked, I've always been open, but I think it just kind of helped me out. I started to learn business numbers. I realized business is the direction I really want to go in. I used to be huge on science. I loved animals. I loved ecology. I loved biology. And I just kind of grew away from that as time went on, I guess. But being with Chick-fil-A helped me mature in so many ways. The people, the guests, like the customers, the team members, everybody kind of like poured into me in some way. And that was either through like long conversations or setting examples or showing, I guess, I don't want to say negative examples, but showing me what not to do, But I feel like all those things have kind of molded me to be where I'm at today. And I'm very grateful for it all.
Yeah, man. So I guess I might have learned some stuff or remembered some things as you were talking there. So like you said, you was born in Port Arthur. Like, did y'all live in Port Arthur, or you were just born in Port Arthur?
We lived in Port Arthur for 11 years of my life. 11 years. We got a house built right next to my grandparents, which is always that's a cool story I love to tell people. We had a great neighbor in between the two of us, he was more than gracious enough to let us like build a house right next to him on that land, and we're always grateful for him. May he rest in peace.
Wow. Okay. And tell me about like, so I guess I just again I might have missed the part about you graduating high school early. Like, how was that? Like, what was that experience like?
So back in elementary school, I was fourth grade, and I would have these classes.
Uh-huh.
In these classes, all the work I guess would be too easy, and I hate to sound like full of myself, but it would be like really easy. And they would give us the classwork, the homework. I turn it in the same day, and the teachers got to the point where like he's not being challenged enough. So they went and got with some of the middle schools in the area because I went to Bingman, and they talked to somebody at Odom. Educator at Odom said, okay, give him these math problems, give him these reading questions, give him these passages, and see how he interprets. And that's kind of what started propelling me towards that trajectory. I already had a late birthday in August, so I would have been 17, I believe, anyway, 16 going on 17. But I started taking sixth grade classes in the fourth grade, and ever since then, I was always 2 grades ahead. So going into middle school, you would have to test in to get in the Pegasus program at Odom. I'll finish like all those tests basically at the top percentile. So I went through middle school like that. In high school, I did dual credit at Ozan, and I mean, I was at the point, and this is something I do want to talk about later. Is like I played football. Stuff happened with football. Football wasn't it anymore. So I said I'm gonna go education, skipped that grade, finished early, went to Lamar.
Yeah, I tend to feel a way about people that went to Oldham. Like my wife went to Oldham, and no, this is no knock to her. I tested to go to Oldham, and I didn't pass the test for what I don't know if I really didn't pass the test or
They just didn't want you.
yeah, because when I really just think about it, Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm getting off topic here because when people talk about testing in the Oldham, I vividly remember going through that test, and then it was like, oh no, anyway. So let's talk about leadership. You currently, from my understanding, you are currently performing at a director of operations level, which might be the equivalent of like a general manager in a restaurant.
Yes, sir.
What is the best part about being a leader?
To me, I enjoy the interaction with people, right? So, in my role as a GM, as a director of operations, I have the blessing to be people's first impression of Chick-fil-A, whether that be a new hire coming onto the staff or that being like a long-time guest, that being a first-time guest, like showing them what the brand really means. And on top of that, they get to understand who I am a little bit also. Like, of course, we have our company, we have everything that people want us to represent. But at the end of the day, it does take the person to carry out that vision. And for me, I love to teach. I love to inform. I love to bond with people. And my role in leadership, it gives me the great opportunity to do that with everybody, not just one person here, one person there, but it gives me the opportunity to say, like, what's your name? Who are you? What's your story? And then I'll share with you my story so you understand how far I've come, and you know that nothing is impossible, right? Like everybody has potential, everybody starts somewhere, but it's definitely like a journey, and it's great to keep reinventing yourself.
And that's amazing, man. Because I definitely understand that want to be the first impression of what the brand represents, and that's an important one. You represent one of the highest forms of leadership in the restaurant, and I think it's imperative that you understand what it is that you're there to do, and I think not only what you're there to do, what you're there to represent. And it sounds like to me that you have an understanding of that. Hey, I'm not just doing a job; I am the job in some sense, right? And you share that with the rest of the leaders, but your responsibility has a little bit more weight, and you're more accountable to certain things. So I love that you recognize that, and I love that you understand that. Hey, it's more than just the transaction. It's the story, it's the brand, it's what we represent organizationally, the vision. So no, kudos to you. So how long have you been in leadership? Remind me.
So it's been about 6.5 years.
Okay, so about 6 years. So that would have mean you've been like 20 years old ish whenever you first got on.
Right.
What were some of those moments that you can recall a younger Caleb? Like, what were the best moments about being a young leader?
I remember my first night as a leader. I picked up a shift from another leader, and I was like the closing LOD, and I wasn't supposed to be by myself at that point. But for me, I was so excited. I learned, I recognized, and I was just ready to jump in. And it felt as though I'd been doing it for so long already. The team really helped rally around. They really helped me learn here and there. They really like helped carry some of that weight that maybe a more experienced leader would have had.
Yeah.
But I think it's due to the relationships that were built. That moment for me was like huge. Like being able to say, "Hey, it's my first night and we got out on time." That was huge for me because as a team member, we would get out at 10:45 and 11 o'clock. And I remember being a team member and saying, like, I hate closing because we never get out on time. So for me, that's a huge moment. A second one, definitely. And there was a period in time when I was a leader at Dowling, and it was like the big three. It was me and two other leaders, and we would be there every night, and we would try and lock in. We recognize each other's weaknesses, we recognize each other's strengths, and we were able to break some records in sales and drive-through, like transaction counts. Being a part of that, it really like reinforced to me like everything is a team effort. Nothing is done without all the parts coming together as the whole. And it really instilled like a sense of pride and a sense of like, hey, I can really do it. We can really do it. And I am able to lead people into a successful moment. The last thing, and I wanted to talk about this. When I played football in Ozan, I was the Mike linebacker. And on the freshman team, you know, it's a bunch of kids. Even at that point, I'm the youngest kid of all those kids. Well, when you play the mic, they expect you to kind of run the defense a little bit. So we played Port Arthur Memorial. Had a guy there named Cameron Martin. I don't know if you know who that is. He was a running back, really talented guy.
Yeah.
He was one of the top freshmen in the state, if I'm understanding correctly. Well, it's like, hey guys, we're playing one of the best dudes in the state. We need to go ahead and like lock in. Let's do our jobs. They didn't understand that first. End of the second quarter, it was 35-0. I'm sitting there like, what happened? Everybody's mad. Well, me trying to be in that leadership moment, like stepping into those shoes, I said, hey y'all, like we're mad at the offense because the offense isn't scoring, but the offense is mad at us because they can't get time to breathe. Like they're on the sideline, they score, they get back on the field, so they're worn out. On top of that, it's our job to help win the game. You always hear defense wins championships. I love Ray Lewis. I'm a huge Ray Lewis fan, and I would always hear that quote, and I will always relate that quote to him. So going back out there, we put it together, and we lost 42-0.
You slowed them down.
I guess. Exactly.
I guess. I guess that was a win if you just breaking it up by halves. You only lost by 7 in the second half.
Right? But for us,
did Cameron stop playing? Did they pull him? Or he was still
no, he was still running.
He was still running.
He was still running. Okay. So right. we really pulled together. But now the proud moment because it's like, okay, you expect to lose by 70. So it's pretty cool.
No, I mean, I think I played ball for a little bit until, you know, I had to have surgery when I was in the 10th grade. And I think there's a lot of lessons that translate from the field to what you do in leadership. And like, I guess you bringing up Ray Lewis, like one of my favorite plays from Ray Lewis, and I think this, and it's not about me, but we're just having a conversation.
Yeah.
But I think like one of my favorite plays is the Ravens were playing the Chargers, man, and LT LaDainian Tomlinson tried to come through the lane, and like it was almost like Ray Lewis had just knew, like he knew the play.
Yeah.
You know, like when you're younger. And I equate this to like the leadership journey. Like when you're younger, you're trying to figure it out. You're relying on physical gifts to, you know, for you to get from point A to point B.
Yes.
And you're kind of just relying on that energy. Like when you get older, you know, you see this with Jordan. Like as you get older and you're still playing at a high level, you rely more on the mental, on the anticipation, on the intuition, and man, like literally. It's like Ray Lewis before the ball snap. He knew exactly what's about to happen. You could tell, like you tell the way he tackled him. He tackled him behind the line. He went straight to where LT was about to be at. And like it's just funny that you bring it up because I always think about that. Like as I'm approaching 40 and I'm working with and I used to have a line that I used to talk to our operator about. It's like, there's a kid that turns 16 every day. When we talking about talent and hiring people, I said there's somebody out there every day.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, as you get older in the organization, that those new 16-year-olds that are coming in, you're getting older. So there's a disconnect to the way you think about things versus the way they think about things. And then I replay that in my mind sometimes, that play, because it's synonymous to, like, you're no longer, you may not have, and so this is not like maybe physical energy, but you don't have the young mind anymore.
Yeah.
So the things that are important to the 16-year-old may not be as important to you. Right. But I'm gonna have to rely on my intuition, my discernment, my ability to read the field, like before the play even happens. I already know what to do. And so that's kind of been like the strength that I've been leaning in the most as I get a little bit older, is just like thinking about, like, how you've seen this movie over and over and over and over and over again. You know how it's gonna go. When certain actors do certain things, or when the lines shift a certain way, or the way that, the way the customers or the quarterback, the way they check down certain things. What's about to happen. So that's cool that you brought it up, because that just reminds me of, like, that play. And it's got to be in Ray Lewis's one of his top plays, because it was I think it was an important time in the season. It may have had playoff implications, but that was pretty awesome, man. But how do you think? Well, number one, what are your strengths, and then number two, how do you leverage those things to develop others?
So I would say, like, probably my 2 or 3 biggest strengths. My ability to, like, connect with people.
Yeah.
I really have an affinity for conversation, for bonding, for learning people. And another thing is, like, I learn well, I would like to say, and I try to learn quickly. So whenever there's, like, an aspect or a thought or a process that's brought to me, I try to, like, learn and take what I can from it, analyze it. And I guess the third thing is being able to articulate things well, because it's all awesome to be able to talk. It's great to be able to, like, I guess, learn, but how great are you at applying what you learn into that conversation and help it be relatable for people? So I think that's the way that I use those strengths, is making it like you made the Ray Lewis connection, right? Like, being able to take something that you learned from somebody through your bond and relate it to something else that you're trying to explain, like, get that point across. I really try to lean into that a whole lot. It makes it a whole lot easier, because you can tell people, I need X squared plus Y squared to equal C squared. But if they don't understand where X and Y comes from, why would they care about what Z is, right? So adding a little bit of purpose to it, and then just like a math equation, you plug those elements in, and you plug whatever you need to go in to make sure you get the result out of it, and then value on the people after that result comes too.
No, that's real good, Caleb. Like, and I use sports analogies a lot, because that's usually the thing that connects people. But, like, identifying a story that resonates with the person that you're talking to make it make sense. And I think that's what a lot of times leaders may fail to realize. Like, I watch, and I think this kind of goes into our next question. I watch newer leaders as they are acquiring knowledge. They go from one phase of, okay, they don't know what's going on. Then the second phase might be, well, they know what's happening, and then they're trying to tell somebody what's happening, but they're just telling them like black and white, without the absence of story, the absence of how you connect it to them.
Yes.
And so I think, like, the more savvy leaders understand that you have to have some type of connecting point, some type of hook.
Yeah.
And, like, sports is universal most of the time, unless you're talking to a particular demographic.
Yeah.
And then you've got to kind of try to make it wiggle around. But it's like, using leveraging your life experiences to things that make sense to you, and hoping that it will make sense to other people. And I think that when you value connecting with people, then you'll start to learn what stories might apply or might be applicable to that person's learning.
Right.
The more you know your team, the more you take stake in who they are and what they represent, then you get an opportunity to really start to bridge the gap with things that are relatable to them. So that's really good, man. And so, in your opinion, you've been a leader for a while now, 5+ years. What are some of the challenges you see new leaders face?
So today, I do see a lot of leaders kind of struggling with the ability to take what they learn, maybe from a meeting, from a sit down, and apply that information in a more urgent way. Because I feel like a lot of leaders nowadays, are scared to like use their leadership voice. They're scared to say like, I understand this and I want y'all to follow this as I am a leader. And I think they're scared to hurt feelings also. I know for sure, speaking from experience, when I was their age, that was one thing I struggled with. It's hard to hold people accountable and want them to be your friends. But at the end of the day, like, we do have a job to do. Y'all do have responsibilities. And will you let the potential of like harming y'all's personal relationship impact your job? And I know you used to tell me this all the time. Like, if those people truly care about you, they will let you lead them because they understand the importance of what you're trying to do. And even if they don't understand the importance, like, it's our job as leaders to inform them, to teach them, to help them learn. And then that helps it put it in a different perspective for them. I think another thing is just like trying to connect to different groups because they may be perceived as one way before they step into that leadership role. But once they get there, they've already had this reputation made. They've already had people's thoughts about them, like preconceived notions like, well, they're not going to be an effective leader. They're not going to be able to articulate themselves. They're not going to be able to hold people accountable. They're immature. And I say those things because those are all things that I've heard about myself. And I think of course it still happens today, but helping those leaders kind of get past that, those young people get past that, I think that's one of the biggest, I guess, bridges that they have to cross. Is one of the biggest things they need to be able to get across.
Yeah, I think back to whenever I first became a leader. Man, I used to have some really good friends that I used to hang out with. Like when the gravity of the titles were different, we was all cool.
Yeah.
And then once things started to move around, it seemed like there was become some distance in some of those relationships. And I think that's one of the hard things for a lot of leaders to understand, and not just the leader, but the friends of the leader, right?
Yes.
Like, as you become more accountable to the organization, as you become more accountable to yourself, most of all, it starts to really put pressure and challenge those relationships. And so I think you're hitting the nail on the head where we would like to think, in our organization, in our restaurant, that the culture is good. Like, the culture is at a place to where everybody is not necessarily like super family, but like we all respect each other, we all appreciate each other, and there's certain, and I like to use the word tribes, but there's certain pockets in the team that do life outside of the four walls of the restaurant.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes it's hard to um, keep things separate, or to compartmentalize those personal relationships versus the working relationship.
Yeah.
And I do see people struggle with that often. And I appreciate you recognizing that, one, two, and then making a concerted effort to be able to try to change the narrative for them, because I think a lot of times people need that support. A lot of times those younger leaders need that mentorship to let them know that, hey, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
This is a part of the gig, and they need that rock or that level of support. And I think you have, in addition to yourself, I think you have a good counterpart that helps with that too. And bridging that gap. And I think we all kind of take some responsibility in making sure that the leaders understand that, not necessarily saying you left one group of friends and got another group of friends, but
Yeah.
how do you cope with maybe not people not wanting to come to you as much as possible? I can definitely see how that, particularly now when things are so social.
Yes.
We're so socially connected through the internet. I can definitely see how the strain is, and what new leaders are going through internally as they process that. So thank you for for bringing that up.
For sure.
And I think you kind of touched on this a little bit in this conversation, but how are you adapting to like a multi-generational workplace? Because obviously I think I got 10 years on you. So I think we're in different generations. I know that I can easily tell. I know there's like a handful of people, maybe more than that, they got 10 years on me. And then you've got 10 years on people,
Yeah.
so from our youngest to our oldest, it literally could just about span 40 years from the youngest person to the oldest person.
Right.
How are you navigating those waters, and how are you adjusting in this multi-generational workplace that we have?
So the biggest thing for me, and when I used to do orientations for new hires, honor, dignity, and respect. Those three things are super key with every single person that comes across. Because without those three elements, there's no purpose in even trying to continue to have a relationship with them. And I think a big way that I navigate using those three things is building off of it. So with some of the younger leaders or the younger team members, you may have more wiggle room to get like some jokes off, right? Because you know the younger kids, they like to clown each other, like to joke around, they play around. It's like, okay, well, I might do that with you, but when you're speaking towards the latter end of the 40-year span, it's like you're not going to disrespect them like that. You're going to give yes sirs and yes ma'ams, and you're going to say Mr. and Mrs., at least from my perspective, because I'm sitting right there in the middle. And it's hard for me to, and I was actually talking to one of my friends about this a few weeks ago. It's unusual and weird for me to have a lady who's closer to 40 calling me sir or Mr. Caleb. And even with the teenagers, I say, please don't call me mister. You make me feel old. On top of that, like, I should be showing you more respect. That's what I was taught. If you're older, you get more respect regardless of whatever your title is, whatever your role is, however long you've been here. I'm going to give you more respect regardless of whether you think you deserve it or not because you've been here longer.
Yeah.
You've experienced things that I know I haven't. You've seen and done things that I couldn't understand, and I respect you for that, regardless of wherever we're at today. And even in the people my same age range, we kind of grew up on the same things. We kind of pay attention to the same things. So with them, it's just everyday conversation. It makes it easier for us to connect. You know, did you watch the game the other day? You see these shoes that came out. You remember back in high school when we were talking about this or when this happened? Or like I always bring up, you remember when Zendaya went to Marshall Middle School? What was that about? Because I went to Odom, and I was wondering why Zendaya didn't come to Odom.
I don't remember that happening.
It was a while ago, and I was confused, and I didn't believe it till I saw pictures. Really random moment.
I would say it must have been a thing for y'all. I guess she's in y'all's age group. I guess.
It was just weird. I was like, "What's going on with that?"
Yeah.
But I think just like I said, honor, dignity, and respect, and then kind of treating each case as a person by person because everybody's different. Everybody's just different personalities. I think that really helps with everything.
Yeah, and I think you said something that was key because this happened to me the other day. Somebody was like, Mr. Alex. And I was like, no, Mr. Just Alex,
Yes.
And I don't necessarily put the you make me feel old thing. That just kind of brings me back to the first meeting we had when I got hired, and that was before we was opening Darwin in 2002. I don't know if you forget, Robert was standing up there and he was talking about, I guess, his vision and mission for what we were going to do. And one of the things he said, he was like, I'm not Mr. Robert. I'm not Mr. Rob. I'm just Rob. You can just call me Rob. And I think for me, as a 14-year-old, you grew up just Mr. and Mrs. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. Yes. And sure, I still do, yes, ma'am, I still do those things. But I think, just to have the understanding to disarm or take away the tension in a relationship when you do that. Because I think when people approach you, and this is not to anybody who answers and welcomes that. I'm not saying anything ill of that.
Yes.
But I think when you lead with saying, like, if you take that off of the table, it kind of opens the door up for more of a connection. It opens the door for more of a genuine relationship. Like if you take away the Mr. and Mrs., it kind of just it
lightens the air.
Yeah, it does. And so I vividly remember Robert. There's a couple things I remember Robert saying that day, and that was one of them for sure. Just like, hey, and I don't know if that was the intent. I don't know. It could have been. Rob, if you're listening to this, I don't know. You let us know. But I just remember that him doing that, and I know just that level of comfort to be able to go approach him and talk to him. And I know people call him Mr. Robert now, out of respect and things like that. But, I think he still welcomes the Rob.
Yeah.
You ain't got to be Mr. Rob. I'm just Rob, and I think that I just want to be Alex. I don't need to be Mr. Alex. I don't need to be Mr. Seal. Like people in the street, not in the streets for real, but like, hey, Mr. Seal, like, I'm like, hey, I had a classmate of mine, man. I had commented on their story or something like that, and it was like Mr. C. I was like, yo, you would
Like,
like we
be for real.
went to middle school together. Like, what are we doing? He probably was joking when he did it, but it's just one of those things where it's like, you know, I don't, and I think it speaks to the humility. I think it speaks to like I don't think too much of myself. Sure. Do I think we have talents and gifts that makes sense in the business and adds value to what goes on in the business and helps other people? But like at the end of the day, I put my pants on just like everybody else, one leg at a time, and I don't think too much of myself, and so it's enlightening to hear you say that, man. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right about the honor, dignity, and respect. I kind of just say HDR because everybody deserves respect. I was talking to somebody yesterday in the coaching call, and we were talking about that. And he was mentioning like, hey, I used to think that people had to earn your respect. I used to think that you had to do something remarkable or big for me to for you to have my respect. But then he realized that it doesn't matter. Everybody deserves to be respected. Everybody, no matter if they're younger than you, older than you, it doesn't matter. And so I definitely think that you're absolutely right. And then the younger generations, you and younger, they're wanting that respect. I think for so long you have older people telling you you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not experienced enough, you're not enough, this, that, or the third.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that once we express some level of humility for ourselves, that gives that makes that person feel like, oh, well, this person respects me.
Yeah.
I've got the attention and the respect of someone who's older, who's in a position, and who's doing this thing. So no, that's cool, man. And so, in all the things that you're doing, right? You've developed into a fantastic leader in the organization. I've had the pleasure of being able to see that over these last few years.
Thank you.
You're raising a family. You got a beautiful baby boy. You got a beautiful family. You and your wife. I've known your wife for some time now. She comes from a great family as well. So I guess, how do you keep your leadership blade like sharpened? Like, how do you stay fresh as a leader?
So, great question. I was on Twitter, or it's X now, actually yesterday.
Yeah.
And I saw a post. God says, whatever you did to get here today will not get you there tomorrow. And to me, I am great at talking. I am great at learning, but I was not the best at thinking of ideas. I was not very creative. I'm not a very outgoing person, like in terms of, hey, I'm going to invent this, I'm going to make this, blah, 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 systems, right? So I had to challenge myself. Can I think of something that would be special? Can I think of something outside of the box? And then going further than that, can I do it? Can I make it into reality? So like when we did our Working Genius, that's my two biggest like I guess icks. They say icks nowadays. That's my ick. Invention. I go, good luck with that. I'll give that to somebody else.
Yeah.
But trying to take the helm of it and go like, I'm gonna do that because I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
And back in the gap as a younger leader, holding people accountable. I'm great at talking to you. I'm not great at talking to you about bad stuff.
Yeah.
Like there was a point in time where when I would have those hard conversations, I just kind of close my eyes and I'd start yelling like, you're not supposed to do that. But learning like honor, dignity, and respect, I have the dignity. I'm going to look you in your eyes.
Yeah.
I'm going to have the respect for you to tell you straight up, like, whatever happened with X, that's not the correct thing to happen. We need to do this instead. And understanding that people will have more respect for you coming out of that than they did going in, because you're holding them accountable and you're not yelling in their face. You're not getting up and acting crazy like you're finna smack them. You're not going to do all the extra stuff. It's just we are two adults. We're having a very like positive conversation. Yeah, I kind of went off on a little rant there.
No. It's all good, man. You speaking from your heart, and I totally understand what you mean. When you bring up Working Geniuses, well, the flip side of that, my genius is to innovate. As as it relates to the assessment.
Yes.
And I think that I kind of live in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And just as similarly though, when I was a younger leader, the accountability piece was one that I think we all struggle with. You know, I just had a discovery call with the leader last night, and her top thing was confronting people. She's uncomfortable in confronting people. I think it's natural because I think you just want to see the best in people.
Yeah.
You want to see, man, you know what to do. You just do it, you know, and you're just in your mind, just like maybe if you look at them and go like,
like
you
it's your
know,
kid.
yeah, you're gonna do better. But you know, I'm glad to hear that you've understand the necessity that you have to have in order to fulfill the duty of your job, right? And I think I would like to think I'm hearing you say, beyond just fulfilling the responsibility of your job, you looking out and really caring for that person. Going back way back to what you said about like people, your friends respecting you, like if they're really your friends, they respect your job and they will be compliant. I think the flip side of that, in this capacity, if you really care about that person, you're going to tell them when they're wrong.
Right.
You know, like I think there's a reciprocal relationship between leader and the people who you are leading. Is that, yes, we do expect compliance, and if they're your friend, you expect them to be compliant or listen to what you have to say, because if you respect me and you call me friend, you'll do that.
Yes.
But on the flip side of that, when you're in this position and you're looking at them, if you're just letting them do things that are contrarian to what they're supposed to do, you lack care for them, you lack respect for them.
Yes.
And from a broader scope, organizationally, you are kind of turning your back on everybody else when you don't exercise that accountability. And I think that's something over the last year or two that we've really organizationally really gotten much better at, and holding people accountable for the things and the actions that they do or don't do. And I think we've really seen a difference in our culture with us adopting those things. And I'm glad that, you are partnering with us and making that stuff happen. And because I definitely know that we're not running a mom and pop organization, and no knock to any mom and pop organizations out there. But as when you're working with the volume that we're working with from a sales standpoint, there has to be some level of standard, some level of accountability, in order for us to execute at the level that we're going to execute at, man. But man, I've really enjoyed this conversation, Caleb. I want to say thank you so much for joining the Pivot Experience. I think everything that you said today, you're going to resonate with somebody out there. There's a young leader out there, a seasoned leader out there that's going to hear this, and then you're going to, I believe that your story is going to help them get better. Is there anything that you would like to leave the audience with as a takeaway from our conversation today?
All I really say is just, if you have a dream, if you have an idea, if you have a thought, if you have a goal, it's not going to happen in a day. Whenever you have a plan, make sure that you think of all the contingencies. Make sure that you are prepared to make those sacrifices needed. Make sure you're prepared to do what it takes. At the end of the day, that was a huge thing we said at Ozan. Do what it takes, whatever it takes. And whether that be you sacrificing staying up late, whether it's being you sacrificing that one bad relationship with that person that holds you down, whether that be literally just waking up at a certain time in the morning, do it, because it's worth it and it's all going to pay out for you in the long term. But that's really it.
Yeah, I went to Ozan too, by the way.
Yeah.
And apparently in the city there's a thing going on right now, but we ain't gonna get into that. Anyway,
I know it's
but anyway, man, no, I appreciate you, man.
Thank you for having me.
I have loved your journey so far, and as you continue to write this story day in and day out, man, I'm happy to be able to work with you. I'm happy to be able to be a part of your life in the professional capacity. And in the personal capacity, man. And I just hope we continue to do great things, man. All right, TPE family. I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation between Caleb and I. I definitely know I did. Honestly, I think I probably knew some of these things already, but now I'm kind of like, yeah, okay. That's why that's like that. Or this is why it's like, okay, well, and honestly, also, maybe we underutilize some things that you have at your disposal based on your background. And hopefully you guys were able to learn something listen, if you've enjoyed this conversation, please like, share, subscribe. If you want to connect with Caleb, I don't know if Caleb has a LinkedIn.
I do.
All
I have a
right, Caleb has
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. I'm not gonna point you to his Instagram because I don't know if that's where he want to see y'all. But hey, whatever. How can they find you, Caleb?
You can find me on LinkedIn. It's Caleb Andrews, CLEBANDRES. If you want to find me on the Instagram, it's Cesium. That my friends call me Mr. Cesium, but it's CEEZIUM. I don't post there often though, so don't be looking for anything inspirational.
And until next time, TPE family, peace.
Tap into the Pivot Experience where we help young, hungry entrepreneurs move on to the next step.